Hey there, I'm Claire, 32 years old, sitting in my tiny Seattle apartment, staring at the chipped paint on the walls and wondering how I ended up as the forgotten daughter in my own family. For 2 years, I've been quietly sending $3,000 every single month to help my parents keep their heads above water. Hospital bills, groceries, you name it. I gave up so much. New clothes, dinners out, even a decent night's sleep, just to make sure they were okay. But in their eyes, my younger brother Noah, the dreamy musician with a guitar slung over his shoulder, could do no wrong. He was their golden child, their pride and joy, while I was just there, fading into the background. It all came crashing down last Thanksgiving at my parents' house in Tacoma. Picture this: a crowded dining room, the smell of turkey and pie in the air, and my dad, Michael, standing up to give a speech. He thanked Noah for saving the family with his so-called generosity while throwing a pointed jab at me for not caring enough. My heart stopped. I'd been pouring my soul into helping them, and they thought it was Noah? That moment, that gut punch of being invisible, pushed me to make a decision that changed everything. Before I dive into what happened next, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Have you ever felt unseen in your own family? Hit that like button if this hits close to home, and subscribe for more real stories about family, heartbreak, and finding your voice. Stick with me, because this story, it's about to take a turn you won't see coming. Let's go back to where this all started, in our little family home in Tacoma, Washington, where the air always smelled faintly of Mom's quilts and Dad's coffee. Growing up, it felt like I was living in Noah's shadow, no matter how hard I tried to shine. Our house was modest, tucked in a quiet neighborhood, with creaky floors and a backyard just big enough for a picnic table. Dad, with his tired eyes from years on the road as a truck driver, would come home talking about providing for us, while Mom juggled her part-time shifts at the craft store, always worrying about bills. They worked hard, poured their hearts into keeping us afloat. But when it came to Noah, it was like they saw a superstar, and I was just the one who kept things together behind the scenes. It started when we were kids, those moments that stick with you like a splinter. Every August, we'd go school shopping, and Noah would walk out with a brand new backpack, fancy headphones, and all the music gear his heart desired: guitar picks, sheet music, even a $2,000 electric guitar. When he was barely 15. Me, I'd get a single spiral notebook and a pair of Noah's old sneakers, always a size too big, laces frayed at the ends. I'd tell myself it didn't matter, that I didn't need much. But deep down, it hurt watching Noah's pile of treasures grow while I made do with scraps. I remember one summer when I was 16, begging to join a photography class at the community center. I'd scraped together $50 from babysitting, thinking it was my chance to do something I loved. Mom shut it down, said it was too impractical, and money was tight. That same week, they signed Noah up for private guitar lessons at a swanky studio downtown. They'd drive an hour each way to his recitals, cameras flashing, bragging to anyone who'd listen about his natural talent. When I won a math award in high school, I was so excited, thinking maybe this time they'd show up to the ceremony. They didn't. They were too busy helping Noah set up for an open mic night at a local bar. I stood on that stage alone, holding my certificate, smiling through the ache in my chest. I tried to be the bigger person. I'd help Mom with dinner, remind Noah to practice his chords, and keep track of Dad's doctor appointments when his health started slipping. I told myself being the responsible one was enough, that my quiet sacrifices would mean something, someday. But every time Noah strummed a new song or landed a gig, Mom and Dad's eyes would light up, and I'd feel that familiar pang, like I was invisible, no matter how much I gave. As we got older, the divide only grew. I worked my way through college, pulling all-nighters and pouring coffee at a local shop to cover tuition. Meanwhile, Noah got a free ride to a music conservatory, every penny covered by Mom and Dad, who called it investing in his future. When I graduated with honors, they sent a quick text. "Good job, Claire." But when Noah played a set at a dive bar, they threw a party, invited half of Tacoma, and toasted to his bright future. I kept hoping things would change, that one day they'd see me. The late nights, the skipped meals, the way I held everything together. But Noah's dreams always came first, and I was left picking up the pieces, wondering what it would take to be enough. That hope carried me through. Even as the years piled on and the unfairness sank deeper, I thought if I just kept giving, kept being the dependable one, they'd eventually notice. But life has a way of pushing you to your limit, and for me, that moment was closer than I ever imagined. So, there I was, fresh out of college, carrying a mountain of student loan debt and a degree in accounting that I'd fought tooth and nail for. I moved to Seattle, rented a tiny studio apartment, barely big enough for a bed and a wobbly thrift store table, and threw myself into my job at a tech startup. I was determined to make something of myself, to prove I could stand on my own. But life at home in Tacoma was about to turn everything upside down, and I found myself giving more than I ever thought I could, without anyone noticing. My dad, Michael, started having heart problems a few years back. It began with little things, shortness of breath, dizzy spells, but then came the diagnosis. He needed surgery, and fast. The medical bills piled up like leaves in autumn, and with Dad unable to drive his truck anymore, money got tight. Mom's part-time shifts at the craft store weren't enough to cover their mortgage, let alone the hospital costs. I saw the worry etched in their faces during our monthly family dinners. The way Mom clipped coupons with a frown. The way Dad's laugh sounded forced. So, without telling anyone, I started sending them $500 a month. I set up an anonymous bank, transfer, timed for the first of each month when bills were due. It wasn't much at first, but it meant I skipped new clothes, ate rice and canned veggies, and said no to nights out with friends. I told myself it was temporary, just until Dad got back on his feet. But his recovery dragged on, and the bills kept coming. Medications, follow-ups, physical therapy. I upped my contributions to $1,000, then $2,000, and eventually $3,000 a month. That kind of money didn't come easy. My apartment was a shoebox, with a leaky faucet and a couch I'd found at a garage sale, one leg propped up by a stack of old magazines. I stopped going to the gym, canceled my coffee runs, and learned to stretch every dollar like it was my last. I'd lie awake at night, calculating how many hours I'd need to work to keep the payments going, but seeing Mom and Dad's stress ease up? That made it worth it, or so I thought. Here's the kicker. They didn't know it was me. Somehow they got it in their heads that Noah, my free-spirited musician brother, was the one sending the money. Noah, who was still living at home, rent-free, spending his days strumming his guitar and chasing gigs at local bars. They'd gush about his generosity at family dinners, saying things like, "Noah's got such a big heart, balancing his music dreams and still helping us out." I'd sit there picking at my plate, my stomach twisting. I didn't correct them. I don't know why. Maybe I thought it'd be a nice surprise someday, or maybe I was just used to being invisible. I kept telling myself, one day they'll see it was me. One day they'll appreciate it. Meanwhile, Noah soaked up the praise. He'd smile modestly, change the subject, but never once said, "It's not me." He kept buying new guitar pedals, eating out with friends, even splurging on a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Mom and Dad threw parties for his gigs, drove hours to watch him perform at tiny venues, and hung his demo posters around the house like he was a rock star. Me? I was killing it at work, landing a promotion to senior accountant. But when I shared the news at dinner, Mom just nodded and said, "That's nice, Claire," before asking Noah about his latest song. My achievements were like whispers in a storm, gone before anyone noticed. It wasn't just the money. It was the way they celebrated Noah's every move, while mine barely registered. When I got an award for a big project at work, they missed the ceremony because Noah had a last-minute audition. When I saved up for a used car to make my commute easier, they didn't ask to see it. They were too busy helping Noah pick out a new amp. I'd swallow the hurt, tell myself it was fine, that I was strong enough to handle it. But that ache, that quiet question, why am I never enough, it grew louder every day. Then I met Liam, a high school teacher with kind eyes and a laugh that could light up a room. We met at a coffee shop, bonding over our love of bad puns and strong espresso. He was the first person who really listened, who asked about my dreams, my struggles. After a few family dinners, he noticed it too, the way conversations revolved around Noah, the way my parents' eyes glazed over when I spoke. One night, as we walked to my car, he stopped me and said, "Claire, why do they act like Noah's the only one who matters? You're carrying so much and they don't even see it." I brushed it off, made excuses. Noah's just more outgoing. They're proud of me in their own way. But his words stuck. For the first time, I started to wonder if I was letting myself disappear. I kept sending the money, month after month, cutting corners in my own life to keep my parents afloat. I told myself it was love. That family meant sacrifice, that someday they'd realize what I'd done. But the weight of it all, my shrinking bank account, Noah's endless praise, the silence around my own efforts, was building to a breaking point. And that Thanksgiving dinner, the one I mentioned earlier, that's when it all came crashing down in a way I never could have predicted. Thanksgiving last year was supposed to be a warm, cozy gathering at my parents' house in Tacoma. I'd been looking forward to it, hoping for once we'd feel like a real family, all on the same page. The dining room was packed with aunts, uncles, cousins, and the smell of Mom's roasted turkey and pumpkin pie wafting through the air. But by the end of that night, everything I thought I knew about my place in this family would shatter. And I'd make a choice I never imagined I could. I'd spent weeks stressing about what to bring. After sending $3,000 to my parents that month, my bank account was down to fumes. I scraped together enough for a small gift for Noah, a used cookbook I found for $8 at a thrift store and $50 in cash, tucked into a card where I wrote, "For your next big adventure." It wasn't much, but it was every penny I could spare. I walked into the house, arms full of side dishes I'd made, and tried to blend in. But as always, the spotlight was on Noah. He was strumming his guitar in the living room. Cousins gathered around, while Mom and Dad beamed like he was playing Carnegie Hall. I busied myself setting the table, refilling drinks, and dodging questions about my boring accounting job. Dinner was in full swing when Dad stood up, glass in hand, to give his annual Thanksgiving toast. His voice was warm, a little shaky from his heart condition, but full of pride. "This year," he said, "I'm grateful for Noah. He's been our rock, sending $3,000 every month to keep this family together. Hospital bills, groceries, the works. Not many kids would do that while chasing their dreams." The room erupted in murmurs of admiration, heads nodding, aunts dabbing their eyes. Then Dad turned to me, his smile fading. "Claire, I wish you'd show a little more heart like your brother. You barely chipped in this year. A cookbook and a few bucks? Come on, you can do better." The room went quiet. 30 pairs of eyes swung to me, some pitying, some judging. My face burned, my fork frozen halfway to my mouth. I felt like I was shrinking, disappearing right there at the table. All those months of skipped meals, sleepless nights, and empty bank accounts flashed through my mind. They think it's Noah? My heart pounded, a mix of anger and hurt bubbling up. I couldn't stay silent anymore, not after everything. "Dad?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper, trembling. That was me. The words hung in the air, fragile, like they might break. I cleared my throat, louder now. "I've been sending the $3,000 every month. For 2 years, since your surgery. It's me. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of a football game on the TV in the next room. Dad blinked, confused, like I'd spoken another language. Mom laughed, a sharp, nervous sound that cut like glass. "Claire, honey, don't be silly. Noah's been helping us. You're just joking, right?" Noah sat there, staring at his plate, his fingers gripping his napkin so tight his knuckles were white. He didn't say a word. Not one. I felt the room closing in, the weight of every stare pressing down on me. "I'm not joking," I said, my voice steadier now, though my hands were shaking. "I've been cutting every corner in my life to send that money. I can show you the bank statements, the transfers. It's all from my account." I reached for my phone, desperate to prove it, but Dad cut me off, his face hardening. "Enough, Claire," he snapped, loud enough to make my cousin jump. "Don't try to make Noah look bad with some made-up story. We know who's been there for us." Mom nodded, her lips tight. "Let's not ruin the holiday with this nonsense." Nonsense. The word hit like a slap. My own parents, looking at me like I was a liar, a stranger. And Noah? He just sat there, head down, letting them believe it. He knew it wasn't him, but he let me drown in their judgment. The room buzzed with awkward whispers. Aunt Laura shook her head, muttering to Uncle Tom. My cousin Sarah gave me a sympathetic glance, but it felt like pity, not support. I looked around at the faces of my family, people I'd loved, sacrificed for, and saw nothing but doubt. In that moment, something inside me broke. 2 years of giving everything, of fading into the background, and this was what I got? Humiliation? In front of everyone I cared about? I pushed my chair back, the scrape against the floor louder than I meant it to be. "If you think Noah's the one saving you," I said, my voice low but firm, "then let him keep doing it. I'm done." I grabbed my coat and walked out, ignoring Mom's calls, Dad's grumbling, and the stunned silence behind me. The cold, November air hit my face as I climbed into my car, tears blurring the streetlights. I wasn't just walking away from a dinner. I was walking away from a role I'd played my whole life, the invisible daughter who gave everything and got nothing. That night, alone in my apartment, I sat on my lumpy couch staring at my bank app. My finger hovered over the transfer settings, the ones I'd set up to send $3,000 every month. With one tap, I canceled it. For the first time in 2 years, I chose myself. It felt like betrayal, but it also felt like freedom. I had no idea what would happen next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to being invisible. The days after that Thanksgiving dinner felt like waking up from a long, heavy dream. For the first time in 2 years, I kept my entire paycheck. No more automatic transfers draining my account. No more nights wondering if I could afford groceries. I bought a new winter coat, nothing fancy, just warm, and cooked a real meal with fresh vegetables, not just rice and beans. I even treated myself to a coffee at my favorite Seattle shop, savoring the warmth of the cup in my hands. It was freedom, but it came with a knot in my stomach. I'd stood up for myself, but at what cost? Back in Tacoma, my family was unraveling. Without my $3,000 a month, the cracks in their finances showed fast. Mom picked up extra shifts at the craft store, coming home exhausted, her hands raw from stitching quilts late into the night. Dad's heart condition kept him from working full-time, and the medical bills kept piling up. Prescriptions, checkups, things I used to cover. Noah, who'd been floating through life on his music dreams, had to face reality. He took a part-time job at a coffee shop, steaming lattes instead of strumming his guitar. I heard through cousins that he hated it, complained about the early hours and the bossy manager. But for the first time, he was contributing something. I thought they'd figure it out, maybe realize what I'd been doing all along. But instead, the phone calls started. Mom's voicemails were tearful, pleading. "Claire, we're struggling. How could you just abandon us like this? Dad's were sharper, laced with guilt. You know we need that money. This isn't the daughter we raised. Noah's messages were vague, mumbling about family sticking together. Then came the letter from Aunt Laura, her spidery handwriting scolding me for turning my back on family values. Each word felt like a weight, pulling me back to that old role, the invisible daughter who fixes everything. I wanted to cave, to send the money and make it all go away. That's when Liam became my anchor. We'd sit on my lumpy couch, sharing takeout, and he'd listen as I poured out the guilt and anger. "Claire," he'd say, his voice steady, "you're not selfish for wanting to be seen. You gave them everything, and they didn't even thank you. You deserve better." He'd point out how my parents never asked Noah to step up, how they expected me to carry the load forever. His words were like a lifeline, reminding me I wasn't crazy for setting boundaries. A few weeks later, the truth came out. Noah, cornered by Mom's frantic questions about the missing money, admitted he'd never sent a dime. I wasn't there for that conversation, but I can imagine his face, red, stammering, his charm failing him. Dad called me the next day, his voice a mix of embarrassment and urgency. "Claire, we checked the bank. It was your account, the $3,000 every month. We didn't know, but we need you to start sending it again. Things are tight, and it's not fair to punish us for a mistake." A mistake. 2 years of my sacrifices dismissed as a misunderstanding. I waited for an apology, for some hint they understood what I'd given up. My savings, my comfort, my dreams. Instead, Dad pushed harder. "You don't need to make a big deal about it. Just send the money quietly like before." I felt my chest tighten, the same old hurt rushing back. Even now, knowing the truth, they wanted me to stay invisible. I took a deep breath, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not sending anything until things change. I want you to acknowledge what I did, publicly, to the family. And Noah needs to keep contributing. No more free rides. I'm done being the only one who sacrifices." Dad scoffed, like I was being dramatic. "You can't hold money over our heads, Claire. That's not family." His words stung, but they also clarified something. They saw my help as their right, not a gift. The calls kept coming. Mom crying about the mortgage, Noah texting about not keeping score, cousins hinting I was being cold. But I held my ground, leaning on Liam's encouragement and the tiny spark of self-worth I was starting to feel. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting to be seen, to matter as much as Noah did. And as the weeks passed, I wondered if my family would ever understand, or if I'd have to let them go for good. 4 months after I stopped sending the money, my family hit rock bottom. Dad's part-time work wasn't enough to cover their bills. Mom was burned out from extra shifts, and Noah was still adjusting to his coffee shop job, grumbling about the grind. I watched from a distance, my heart heavy but resolute. I'd given them my terms, public acknowledgement, equal treatment, Noah pitching in, and I wasn't backing down. Then, one chilly March evening, Mom called. Her voice was different, softer, almost broken. "Claire, can you come over for dinner this Sunday? We need to talk. Really talk." Something in her tone told me this wasn't another guilt trip. I agreed, but I held firm. My boundaries weren't negotiable. That Sunday, I walked into their Tacoma home, the familiar smell of Mom's lasagna filling the air. The table was set for 4, me, Mom, Dad, and Noah, and the house felt quieter, humbler, with fewer knickknacks and signs of strain. Noah looked tired, his usual swagger dimmed by early morning's steaming lattes. Dad cleared his throat as we sat down, his hands fidgeting. "Claire," he said, meeting my eyes, "we owe you an apology. We were wrong. Wrong about the money, wrong about that Thanksgiving dinner, and wrong about how we've treated you your whole life." Mom's eyes welled up, We took you for granted, thinking you didn't need us like Noah did. But you deserved just as much love, just as much pride. Their words hit like a wave. Relief, vindication, but also a quiet sadness that it took so long. Noah spoke next, his voice low. I knew it wasn't me sending the money. I should have said something, but I liked being the hero. I was selfish, Claire, and I'm sorry. His honesty stung, but it also opened a door. For the first time, I saw my brother as someone capable of change, not just the golden child I'd resented. The real turning point came at a small family barbecue in April, with just our closest relatives. Dad stood up before dessert, his voice steady. I need to set something right. Claire's been sending us $3,000 a month for 2 years, keeping us afloat. We credited Noah, and we shamed her at Thanksgiving. That was our mistake. And we're sorry. The aunts and cousins looked stunned, some apologetic, others awkward. But it didn't matter. The truth was out, and I felt seen, really seen, for the first time. Things changed after that. Mom and Dad started asking about my job, celebrating my promotions with the same enthusiasm they'd always saved for Noah's gigs. Noah, now contributing $600 a month from his job, began treating me like an equal, even asking for advice about budgeting. We started talking, really talking, and he admitted how much pressure he'd felt to live up to their expectations. I decided to send $1,500 a month, not the full amount, but enough to help while I rebuilt my own life. It wasn't about obligation anymore. It was a choice, made with clear boundaries. Looking back, I learned that love shouldn't mean erasing yourself. For years, I thought sacrifice was enough, that giving quietly would earn me a place in my family's heart. But real love, family love, means being seen, valued, and respected for who you are. Standing up for myself wasn't selfish. It was necessary. Sometimes you have to draw a line, even with the people you love most, to show them what you're worth. If you've ever felt invisible in your family, I want you to know you're not alone. Share your story in the comments. Have you had to fight to be seen? Hit that like button if this resonated, and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice. You deserve to be loved for all you are, not just what you give. Don't be afraid to demand that, because you are enough.